Hey, how's it going, my fellow Homo sapiens? It is I, Tom Smith, and I'm just going to act like a complete nerd in this video because today we're talking about one of the coolest characters ever, Batman. Batman across all mediums has gotten a spot in the limelight. Or shadows, since it's Batman. Anyways, whether it be movies, TV shows, comics, or just anything really, Batman has at least gotten one masterpiece under those mediums. Today, I'm gonna talk about one that's in the video game space, and that game is none other than Batman Arkham Asylum. Before Arkham Asylum came out, there were not a lot of amazing Batman games. Hell, there were not a lot of great superhero games in general. The only Batman game that I can truly say was good before Arkham Asylum came out was Batman Vengeance. But besides that, there really wasn't a great Batman game out there until Rocksteady came in. Now, Rocksteady at this point in time was only known for making one game, which was Urban Chaos Riot Response. And that's it. They literally made nothing else up to this point. After the tie-in game for The Dark Knight got cancelled, Eidos got the rights to make a Batman game and approached Rocksteady to make the game since Urban Chaos was published by Eidos themselves, and that game was pretty successful critically. So Rocksteady agreed to take charge of developing the Batman game and went to work. It honestly must be really daunting to try and make a video game on a beloved character such as Batman, especially if you are a new up-and-comer who only worked on one game, but I digress. They released the game and it was an astounding critical and financial success, warranting a whole franchise and universe, spawning 2 sequels, 3 spin-offs, and literally just revolutionizing the industry as a whole, with other games trying to take inspiration from it, or other developers just straight up taking mechanics from Arkham Asylum, like how the combat works and the detective mode itself into their own games. This game is easily one of the best superhero video games of all time, like Marvel's Spider-Man, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. No, not you, no. That one. That's the one. Jesus Christ. The Infamous games, and even other Arkham games as well. But in my mind, Arkham Asylum is my personal favorite superhero game, and one of my favorite games of all time. Now you might be asking why, since Arkham City literally exists. And sure, Arkham City in many aspects is better than Arkham Asylum, but to me personally, I just love the atmosphere. I love how small scale the game actually is, and I love the Metroidvania aspects of it more than the open world of Arkham City. And I'm not saying that Arkham City's open world is bad, but I just prefer Arkham Asylum's Metroidvania level and world design over Arkham City's open world design personally. I also just think that the Riddler stuff was way better in Arkham Asylum than Arkham City, but I'll get to that later. But mainly the reason why I love this game more than any other superhero game is its dark, moody, and gothic atmosphere. It's just completely atmospheric and I love it. This game is so good that it can honestly be considered a masterpiece since it did so much for the industry and just how good of a game it is too. So without further ado, here's why Arkham Asylum is an atmospheric masterpiece. And no, I'm not playing the remastered version because it looks really weird and it just looks off. Ugh.
Max, what do you want for dinner?
Justice.
The gameplay for Arkham Asylum is phenomenal. I'll touch on the combat and stealth a little later, so for right now, I'll touch on everything else. First of all, the level design complements the gameplay and exploration. There are a decent amount of ways to traverse Arkham Island, and the level design really complements that. You can glide in the air with your cape from a tall structure, you can grapple on ledges and gargoyles, you can shimmy on a ledge as well, you can jump across holes beneath you, and so much more. Sure, the movement and gadgets also help with that too, but the level design does so too, with really high structures and buildings, a decent amount of platforming sections like when you platform around a broken elevator or in ancient ruins within the sewers, a lot of edges, gargoyles, vents, and other points of contact to grapple to. The game also has a Metroidvania approach to level and world design where something will be blocked from your path, but you can come back later when you have the specific skill or gadget that you need to get through that blocked path. For instance, maybe there'll be a secure roadblock in your way because you need the cryptographic sequencer to shut that security system down, and once you have that gadget, then you can use it to either progress through the game or to find secrets. Maybe you find a Riddler trophy in the distance, but it's super far away and can't glide to it, but then you find the line launcher and can now get to that Riddler trophy. trophy. Or maybe there's a breakable wall, but you can't use your explosive gel because it's in a higher elevation, and there's no platform to stand right next to it. But once you get the Backclaw upgrade later on in the story, then you can use that to break the wall and see what was in the breakable wall in the first place. The game makes you explore and go out of your way to just go back to those roadblocks and unlock them to get a reward out of it.
I'm afraid it's too late, Joker.
What?
I've already got my OSHA forklift certification.
Not to mention that the world itself is super atmospheric when it comes to the architecture of the buildings inside Arkham Island, and just the island itself. The architecture itself is very gothic, like how it should be. And what I mean by that is, well, it's Batman. Gotham and Arkham has always looked gothic in its aesthetic since Batman's first appearance in the comics. It's a stylistic and aesthetic choice that fits Batman and his world so well, and this game proves that to a major degree, because its gothic design within the world makes it feel alive, yet also dreary and dark. Dark and gloomy buildings, gargoyles on the walls, vines covering some of the surfaces and walls, some places being ancient in its design, with it having rusty and old bricks and pipes holding the entire structures up. And just the design of these interior and exterior places just make it have that gothic feel to it that I love so much in the world of Batman. You can look at the outside and inside of the buildings in the game, and it has that gothic and dark feeling to it, but it still has a variety of locations within the island, but it still feels like they belong within the world. There's the first area in the game, which comes across as the typical looking mental hospital with cells, offices for the doctors, security stations, and computer areas. There's the medical facility, which acts as a normal health hospital area with doctor's equipment everywhere, offices for these doctors, medicine, and rooms like X-ray, observatory, and surgery. Also, fun fact about the level design for this place is that there's one section where you have to save 3 doctors, and you can come across an area that bridges the 3 rooms where the doctors are in, X-ray, observatory, and surgery. And sure, you could just look at your map and see where you have to go to get to these rooms, but if you pay attention to the signs and the floor below you, you can see that they have clear indicators within the level and world design that will point you to where these rooms are. It's a little cool thing that adds more into that atmosphere and immersion within this game, and it's just smart level design either way. Then we have the penitentiary, which keeps more of the extremely insane or even more strong and powerful people there, like Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, Clayface, this inmate that nobody knows but has really creepy, deep breathing. Okay. Ugh. And all the mindless zombie-like people who you encounter later in the game. There's a lot, and I mean a lot of holding cells here. More security in this place than any other area in the game, and some really cool Easter eggs to other characters. The Arkham Mansion is just that. A mansion. Originally for the Arkham family, now it's pretty much where employees go either on break or just to get away from the madness for a while. Besides Dr. Young, I guess, since her office is right there, but yeah, whatever. This place has a library, Amadeus Arkham's cell, and even a clock tower. The Botanical Gardens is, well, a garden. It has vines all over the place with plants protruding from these vines or anywhere that has dirt. So pretty much everywhere. In some parts it has water and even some water fountains. And this place leads to some of the ancient ruins and sewer places within the game too. And then there's the caves and the sewers, which is literally that. Caves and sewers. It has a lot of water, ancient ruins to platform to, Killer Croc's spooky lair, and it even has the Batcave in there in case this particular situation ever happens. There are also a lot of secrets within the island, a lot of nods to classic and even obscure villains and characters to the Batman mythos, little signs and fun little things here and there. Yet again, there's this inmate in the penitentiary who is really creepy. You can see Gotham out in the distance and even Wayne Tower as well. And then there's this comically huge ass moon, which is like, yeah, that's concerning. Not to mention also that a lot of the henchmen have dialogue and banter with one another, and it adds personality and character to these criminals. You sometimes even feel bad for them.
I hope you keep your promises, boy. I'd hate to have to go and punish your family just to teach you a lesson. And I can promise you, they won't be laughing.
But Joker!
Yeah, but just do it and have fun. I know I will.
I'll just have someone drive round to your house and break your wife's leg.
But Joker!
You got a problem with my generous nature?
No, I guess not. Thanks?
Oh, don't mention it. Let's just consider the matter closed. Did I ever tell you the one about the guy who came home to find his wife a paraplegic?
Yet sometimes they can have cool nods, like one of them talking about Metropolis and Keystone City, which is pretty cool. And some of them would just be fun banter between the goons.
Hey, I've got a cousin in Metropolis who needs some heavies for his security company. You know, knocking on doors, collecting money.
Breaking some legs and make them pay?
Good times. You want in? I can put in a good word.
Sounds great. I'm up for that.
And look who it is! Hey, Batman! Looks like you've taken a wrong turn! We're here to make sure you stay where you are! Yeah, go back and play with that bitch for a few more hours. The boss isn't ready for you yet.
Then what?
We held him upside down and beat the crap out of him. The guy was a mess. Did he pay up? Nah, he spent it on the track.
What? You let him get away with it?
Do I look like an idiot? When I found out he had no cash, I cut out his kidneys, his liver, a few other bits I don't know the name of, and sold them on the street. Some rich guy's probably walking around with them in him as we speak.
And people just buy stuff like that? There's always a buyer out there, whatever you're selling.
Nice story. Got any others? Do we get back to looking after this place?
Yeah, whatever. He asked, I told him.
All of these little nods and Easter eggs helps make this universe and world feel more alive and have a ton of history to it, which is awesome. These levels and this world have so much to them, and I haven't even touched the collectibles either, and how they're scattered all over the map. Like I said, this game goes for a Metroidvania feel to it, so there will be areas you will be blocked from entering unless you have the right skill or gadget for you to unlock these areas. What these areas contain are most likely collectibles, whether that be Chronicles of Arkham, patient interview tapes, and the goddamn Riddler trophies and challenges. I enjoy exploring and getting every collectible in this game more than any other Arkham game, because the other games are a lot more open since they're open world games. And getting those collectibles, at least to me, felt like a chore. It made it really tedious to do, because there was just so much of them. But in Arkham Asylum, it's a Metroidvania, and in that case, it feels a lot more tolerable, because there's not as much collectibles and exploration, but there's still a pretty good amount to do without feeling tedious. So you win this round, Enigma. Ooh, you piece of shit. I also found some of these to add more to the story and have a lot of interesting backstory and lore to the universe. Of course, I'm talking about the interview tapes and the Chronicles of Arkham. I'll talk more about the patient interviews in depth in the story section of this video, but with the Chronicles of Arkham, it's really interesting. Sure, it's not important to the overall major story, but it adds history and lore to this universe with who Amadeus Arkham is, and it also adds a mystery to it because someone is recounting and recording these, and every time we scan them, we get closer and closer to figuring out who is narrating these messages. It's awesome, and it shows a small detective side to the gameplay, which is pretty nice. I will say, however, that even though I love collecting and exploring within the game each and every time I play it, I do wish you get some ultimate reward out of it, when you get absolutely everything. Sure, you get character trophies and unlock certain maps for the challenges, but those are when you collect a certain Riddler trophy, or a certain amount of them at least. There's literally nothing for completing the game and getting everything. No new suit, and I'm not counting the new bat armor you get because that's only for challenges, and you just get it by only beating the game. No new gadget, no extra move, not even a little cool cutscene or anything. It gives you nothing, which I think really sucks. Next, I want to talk about the gadgets for a little bit. The gadgets add more to the gameplay, which some of it I will get into later, but for right now, it complements the Metroidvania elements completely. The grapple helps you get to higher places, the explosive gel bursts open breakable walls, the cryptographic sequencer lets you bypass security panels, the line launcher allows you to zipline through any distance and get to a hard to reach spot if needed to, the classic batarang can be used to cut ropes and hit buttons that are unreachable, and the back claw can pull vents and breakable walls out if they're in unreachable areas. Every gadget has a use within the gameplay and world of Arkham Asylum, and they're a pretty cool addition. A major and revolutionary factor within the gameplay is the detective vision. Now, has this feature been used in other games? Sure, but this game made it a popular feature that everyone used and tried to copy after Arkham Asylum came out, with games like Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, and the recent Spider-Man games doing this as well. And there's a reason for that. The Detective Vision is essentially a forensic scanner that helps you to easily detect where enemies and specific objects are. This really helps out in the stealth sections, which I'll get into later, but it does help out if you want to discover stuff like hidden breakable walls, Riddler trophies, interview tapes, and all sorts of stuff. All that stuff glows red in an all blue vision, and it helps out a lot in those scenarios. This feature can also be used to scan things like riddles and Chronicles of Arkham. The game also has certain sections where you have to investigate a specific area for a certain clue on where to go next, whether that be Officer Bowles' flask, Gordon's pipe, or Harley Quinn's cane residue, which culminates in a breadcrumb trail to your next location you have to go to. Yeah, this isn't the best use of this feature, but it did set up what could be done with this feature in later installments in this universe and franchise, in a much better and interesting way. And I have to respect the start of its roots. Also, I'm not saying it's a horrible way to do it, but there's a lot better ways than this. The only thing I dislike about this feature, in this game particularly, is the fact that there's no reason to turn it off throughout the rest of the game, since it doesn't punish you for using it too much. You can seriously go through all of this game with only having the detective mode on, and the game doesn't punish you or care if you use it too much. It's not a huge deal, but it is a little boring and makes the game too easy for my taste. They did later fix that problem with Arkham City, but it's still an issue here. Like I said, not a huge issue, and it doesn't take away from any enjoyment I have for this game, but it's an issue nonetheless. The music and sound design for this game is mostly great. It's moody, dark, and atmospheric, which is great. The only complaint I have for this game is using Mid-Eye for its soundtrack. Most of the time it doesn't sound like Mid-Eye at all, but there are a few instances where the Mid-Eye shows, and it's pretty funny. It's not a huge deal since, like I said, most of it is great, but it's just a little funny is all. The sound design is great, with it helping the moody and dark atmosphere it's going. Small sounds like water tapping on the ground, pipes bursting. The wind whistling, toy teeth chattering, a lot of other small stuff, while there are also big stuff like alarms, henchmen talking to each other, Joker talking on the speaker, and a lot of other stuff too. The sound design adds so much to the atmosphere and it's great. I've been playing the game on PC for this review and it looks great and runs really well. The game gives you a lot of graphics and performance options to fit your PC specs, and it's really intuitive. Obviously the game is over 10 years old. Jesus Christ. So of course it's gonna run well and look good, but it's still really cool that the game gives you a lot of options for how you want the game to look and run on PC. At least it's better than Arkham Knight's PC port. And of course the game runs extremely well. Like I said, it's a 10-year-old game, but even older games can oddly enough have trouble running smoothly sometimes. And it's still nice to have higher frame rates either way, and it's a sign of a good PC port. The only problem I have when it comes to the technological side of things is a funny glitch I encountered, and that's pretty much it.
Oh.
You know, this game really makes you feel like Batman.
Arkham Asylum makes you feel like you're Batman.
Okay, but seriously, putting all the memes aside, the quote isn't wrong. Sure, it's overused and really funny nowadays, but it's not wrong. And one of the major reasons why the game does this so correctly is because of the gameplay. Let me explain. The combat really sells on you feeling like this badass martial artist who could take on thugs and super criminals, because it's really well done here. The animations for these attacks are extremely smooth and fluid, and they don't bog down with weird wind-up attacks. Like, no, they get straight to the point and it's fast. Batman really is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a middle-aged depressed emo billionaire. Not just that, but also how the combat works is pretty unique and innovative. Like I said with the detective vision, sure it's been done before in other games, but Arkham Asylum really puts these gameplay mechanics on the map and made them really popular, with other game devs putting this combat system in their own games after Arkham Asylum came out, with games like Marvel's Spider-Man and Shadow of Mordor to name a few. The combat with how it works is very simple, yet you have so many options to attack and counter enemies that it makes it a pretty deep combat system as well. How it works is that you press one button button to attack and 1 button to counter an enemy's attack. And that's pretty much it. Obviously there's more to it, but that's pretty much all you have to know in terms of getting the gist of how the combat works as a whole. But like I said, there's more to this combat system than just pressing the X and Y buttons. Sure, that's a part of it, and you can go through the game by just doing that if you want to, but you'll get bored very quickly, and you'll get your ass handed to you. The reasoning for that is because if you just use those 2 buttons only throughout the rest of the game, then you'll have a really bad time taking out a variety of enemies. There's not only your typical henchmen bad guys, but there's also boss fights, huge hulking titan boys that you have to use your batarangs to stun them, enemies with knives that you have to stun to even be able to attack them, enemies with electric stun batons that you have to jump around to get behind them and take them out that way, guys with guns and guys with snipers. There's a lot of variety within the enemies that makes the combat a little more deep and in depth. It honestly kind of works like a rhythm game in a way, because you counter enemy attacks with what their weakness is, and when they're open for an attack, then you start attacking. It's a pretty great combat system, and I love it. Sure, you have your typical attacks and counter options, but you can also upgrade your skills and get some really cool takedowns once you have enough of a combo to use those moves. One of them is picking up an enemy and throwing him at another enemy, and then another one is just a typical finisher takedown that has some brutal animations and sounds to them. They really help you out in terms of taking out bad guys quickly, or in terms of the throwing takedown. You can hurl an enemy at a group of them, and that way they'll stay down for a little bit, and you can worry about the people around you. Also, the finishers in this game are really cool. They're really brutal and visceral. The reason being is because of the hard and crunchy sounds of a henchman's bone cracking, and the animation having a really hard and weighty hit to them, that it makes those finishers brutal even if you knock out a henchman with only 1 punch. You can also use your gadgets in combat scenarios too, and they help a lot. You can throw up to 3 batarangs at enemies and they can easily get knocked out by them for a second. It can also grant you easy combo points too. You can use the back claw to bring the enemies more closer to you to lay a hit on them while they're disoriented from the pole. And you can use the line launcher to zipline and kick enemies with full force. Not a ton of options, but it's still really cool to use these gadgets in multiple ways. And using them for combat is really cool and gives more variety to the combat anyways. They did expand upon this aspect a lot more in Arkham City, with more gadgets to use in combat, and also the addition of most gadgets having a quickfire option to them. But it is still cool to at least have some options for combat. Next, I want to talk about the bosses and how they're mostly pretty damn good. But just to get it out of the way, there are some bosses that I'm not a huge fan of in this game. The main boss fight is one of them. It's just the huge titans that you faced before, except with henchmen coming in around phase 2 of the boss and the fact that it's Bane, and that's really it. It's a little underwhelming, but whatever. Another one is the final boss with the Joker. And I don't mind Joker's appearance and him becoming a Titan monster, because to me it makes sense within the story, and with Joker's character.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would.
No, I don't mind that at all. The problem I do have with the boss is with the fight itself. It's just repetitive and boring. It starts with Joker coming at you and trying to hit you. Then he gets bored and brings his henchmen to deal with you while he throws explosives and stuff at you until you take out all of them. And Joker will just get distracted by the helicopter. And then you have to use the back claw on his back until he falls down. And then you can start attacking him. You have to do this 2 times throughout the fight and that's it. It's really boring and repetitive and I'm not a fan of it. The last major problem I have with some of the boss fights is that they'll just bring in henchmen to spice up the boss, and they always thought it's just a lazy way to make a boss fight hard. Dark Souls 2 did this, and so does this game at some points. And like I said, I'm not a fan of this, but besides those problems, I love the other boss fights in this game. I love Poison Ivy's boss fight because it's more dynamic and it's also really cinematic, grand, and really cool in terms of scope. She uses her tendrils on the ground to try and grab you, but you have to go to a certain part of the floor to not get caught by the tendrils. And after that, you have to throw batarangs at Ivy herself once her bubble shield thing comes out of the plant that she's in, and once you chip that health bar away, you can use her explosive gel to break that bubble shield thing, or whatever it is, to defeat her. It's a pretty cool boss fight in my eyes. Yes, there are henchmen there, but there's only a small percentage of them, and you can just easily take them out since they're not in control and don't have much to them besides punching and using pipes as weapons, and that's it, so it's no big deal. I also like some of the boss fights with the big cheese enemies. and you have to stun them by throwing a batarang at them when they're charging at you. Afterwards, they become disoriented, and that's when you can attack. They're pretty cool enemies, and there's one point where you can take on 2 of them, and it's pretty cool because one of them kneels down, and so that way you can jump on his back and use him to kick the other one's ass. It's pretty awesome, not gonna lie. Another one I really love is Killer Croc's boss fight, because it's not a usual boss fight in a sense of the word. What I mean by this is that once you start the boss fight, you're in Killer Croc's lair trying to obtain vials of spore samples. But the thing is, you don't know where Croc is, and he doesn't know where you are too, so it's a cat and mouse situation. Killer Croc's biggest friend is the sewage waters, so you have to avoid being in those waters or else you're fucking dead. So you have to walk on these wooden boards on the water, so you won't have to get into the water. But these boards make sounds if you run on them, so you have to move slowly so Croc won't catch you and kill you. At some points, Croc can come up from the waters and jump up on the planks and try and capture you, but you could just throw a batarang at his neck collar and it'll electrocute him, and he falls back into the water, making you escape that little encounter. Now, is this easy? Sure, but I love it because it gives me anxiety because I have no idea where Croc is going to pop up next, and it just freaks me the hell out. And I mean, look at this thing. He's fucking terrifying. He looks horrible. I don't want to be caught by that creature. After you get all the samples you need, you try to get back to the way you came from, but once you get closer, Croc will start taking out boards behind you, and you have to run to the exit Crash Bandicoot style. Once you get to the exit, Croc will run at you, but Batman already set a trap for him, and now is trapped in a hole in the ground. The boss fight is great because it's not a typical boss fight, and it's really scary and anxiety-inducing, because you don't know where Croc is going to pop up. And he's just really scary, so you already don't want to get caught by him. And lastly, we have all 3 Scarecrow sections. And these ones are my personal favorite boss fights because they're really terrifying. These sections play on horror conventions, with Scarecrow being a villain dealing all about fear within the mind. So it would only make sense for these segments to be horrific and atmospheric. These sections deal with psychological horror elements, and the fights themselves aren't really fights at all. It's really a game of hide and seek with a huge towering scarecrow trying to find you while you try to hide and take cover behind certain objects and walls until you move and get to a bat signal to shine at him and get out of the nightmare. It's a really cool way to implement horror aspects into this game, and it really fits because this game's atmosphere is gothic and its tone is dark and moody. So these sections fit perfectly, and they were all handled really well. It also helps with the horror aspect of these boss sections because of what happens before the boss fights occur. Before any of these boss fights happen, you get to see in a really cool little detail that Batman is getting affected by the fear gas, with him coughing and the gas being shown subtly from the air vents.
Bad feeling about this.
Once that happens, you get into a trance, and that's when the sequences of terror come in. The first section deals with you having to witness the effects of other people when they're affected by the fear gas, and it's chaotic. Afterwards, you seemingly see Gordon's death in front of your eyes, and after that, you reach the morgue and you experience seeing your dead parents in body bags, and it's just really creepy, man. Then you get jump scared by Scarecrow, and after that, you start the boss fight. In the second section, it's pretty much just a retelling of Batman's origin, which sure, it's been done to death at this point, but it's used very well and very effectively here to show Batman's fear of his parents' death, and I really like it. Then the third section is, well, it's this.
You should feel sorry for him. He never fully got over his parents' death. It left him quite insane. What is going on inside your head, Wayne?
I've waited a long time for this, Bats. Let's start the party with a bang.
Ah! What in the world? God damn! When I played that for the first time, it really got me. Because I genuinely thought the game froze at that point, but then it kept going. And it really scared the crap out of me. It's awesome because not only is Scarecrow screwing with Batman's head, but he's also screwing with the players' head too, by doing this fourth wall break scare. And it makes it extremely terrifying. And you question whether the game is broken or not. The only thing that sucks is that for this video, I've been playing it on PC. And the start of the sequence was meant to be played on a TV, since it used static to its advantage. And while not immersion breaking and not a big deal, it's just a little funny is all. Like I said, these sections are a game of hide and seek, so you have to use cover to hide yourself from Scarecrow, and it really utilizes stealth in this game pretty well. And just like the Killer Croc section, it's really anxiety inducing, because you don't want to get caught by this dude, and he just looks scary. While on the topic of stealth, one of the game's major gameplay components and features is its stealth mechanics. Yeah, it's not a Splinter Cell or a Hitman, but it's still really great in terms of what they were going for. There's just so many ways to encounter stealth situations in this game, and one of the reasons being the level design and how intuitive it is with the stealth mechanics. You can do all sorts of things. A certain room can have breakable walls, so you can use explosive gel to take out a nearby enemy with. There are vents that you can crawl in, which makes you undetected. There's elevation at play here, so you can take out an enemy if one of the other enemies are on a higher or lower level. There's the gargoyles, which you can grapple to and use as a way of transportation around the room to see who you can take out next. And you can also use those gargoyles to use a special move to take out henchmen with. There's a decent amount of ways you can use the level design to your advantage in terms of stealth, and it's awesome. Then you have your gadgets too. I already talked about how you can use breakable walls and the explosive gel to take out your opponents, but that's not all. You can use the Batarang to hit someone and then knock him out while he's on the floor. You can use the Bat Claw when an enemy is nearby a ledge, and you can pull him off of the railing and ledge, knocking him out. You can use the line launcher to kick enemies from across the room and knock them out that way. And you can even have a sonic Batarang that you can throw right next to someone, and it detonates a sound with the person hearing it, and they'll go investigate it only for you to detonate the Batarang explosive and knocking out the person. A lot of really cool potential on how you can take out these enemies in these stealth sections. However, what I like about the stealth is that the enemies will learn from what you do. So sometimes enemies will pair up in groups once you start taking them out one by one. Enemies can also look in the vents if it's next to an enemy, and they can spy you that way. Later in the game, they'll notice that you use gargoyles as a safe traversal option, so they put bombs on the gargoyles, and it makes you think more about how you're gonna traverse through the room and how you're gonna take out these guys. Joker also equips his henchmen with what he calls the suicide collar, which if you knock out a guy with that collar, it will make a sound and will bring attention to the other enemies, making them more alert and checking the unconscious body as well. So even though there's a lot to achieve with the stealth mechanics, just remember that these guys are not dumb, so at least be a little cautious on what you do.
You know, I'm gonna say the N-word.
The story in the game is nothing remarkable, but it's decent. Arkham Asylum is one of those games where it's more character driven than plot driven, because it focuses on the characters of the villains, heroes, side characters, and even some of the NPCs are fleshed out in some way. The story isn't bad, far from it. It's just nothing insanely spectacular. So don't go into this game expecting a story like Halo 2, The Last of Us 1, or Silent Hill 2. The game does have a really atmospheric opening though. It tells you who some of the characters are and who some of the villains are. The emphasis on the impact of who Joker is and how he's treated by the security guards, officers, and doctors there with how their reactions are to them.
I want weapons on him at all times. Do not let him out of your sight.
There'll be time enough for you later, Cash.
Looks like he suffered minor lacerations, probably in the last 2 hours. There seems to be...
Need to take my temperature? I'd be happy to drop my pants.
He's all yours. Get him out of here.
I thought I told you to stay quiet.
Oh, Frankie, you really should learn to keep that fat mouth of yours shut. It'll get you into trouble.
All patients should avoid contact with prisoners from Blackgate Prison Facility. Their presence...
What's he doing? Stay where you are. Get a flashlight. Get a light on him.
Our presence in our institution is temporary.
So, you're back. You killed 3 of my crew when you busted out of here.
Only 3? I'll be sure to try harder next time. What say we aim for 100?
It's like they're disgusted or even scared by his presence. It shows a history within this world. It feels like Batman has been doing this for a long time, with it establishing that everyone at Arkham has some history with Batman. In most Batman media, when he starts out his career, the cops and everyone in Gotham are iffy about him, and maybe they're even against him. But then there are media that portrays him working with the law pretty frequently, and he's on good terms with the police force in Batman's later years. And in this game, it's the latter, and you can tell with the interactions you have with the NPCs and talking with Gordon himself. It also shows this by having a major chunk of Batman's rogues gallery in the game, and they all hate him besides the Joker. Joker, Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Killer Croc, and Victor Zsasz all appear in the game. And with that, they also lean more into the fantastical side of the Batman mythos, instead of trying to make it realistic like a lot of other Batman media does, and I really like that. I mean, for God's sake, look at Killer Croc in this game. That's not realistic, but it's certainly not goofy, because the design for him looks insanely unsettling and scary. That's the best part. Most of these characters are fantastical, but they don't look goofy at all. And speaking about the fantastical designs, the character and costume design for almost everyone in this game is amazing. Almost everyone. Killer Croc's design, for example, is incredible because he looks terrifying. He has his scales, sharp teeth, his glowing yellow creepy eyes, and his big, tall, and muscular structure makes him this huge and scary force to be reckoned with. And it makes you feel like you don't even want to mess with him because, I mean, look at him. Just no, my guy. Scarecrow's design is the same thing when it comes to it looking really scary. He has those freaky Freddy Krueger-esque needle fingers. Sometimes he'll have pitch black eyes, and then other times he'll have glowing yellow eyes. His brown clothes, his really dirty skin, and his creepy-ass mask. It's really creepy, and it suits this character well. Zsasz looks creepy because he just looks really unsettling with all his tally marks of his victims he killed all over his body, and with his eyes being dark and shallow around them. The Joker honestly kind of looks like his counterpart from the animated series, with the purple suit, green hair, purple gloves, long chin, and of course his long and creepy smile. He looks amazing and just looks classic. Batman literally looks perfect. This might be one of my favorite Batsuits because just look at his design. It's just classic. The long pointy ears, the long cape, the black trunks, the big yellow belt, and he has black armored gauntlets and boots as well. It's just a perfect classic design that shouldn't be touched upon. So, of course, they touched it up in Arkham Knight and Origins. The only designs I don't like are Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy's costumes, because they haven't aged so well. The reason being is because Rocksteady over-sexualized the designs of their outfits. And yeah, I know I'm gonna be called woke for saying all of this, but I honestly wouldn't mind these designs all that much. However, knowing Rocksteady's history with their treatment of female employees and how they handle their culture over there, yeah, I'm gonna lean more into the aged like shit side. The performances in this game are terrific. Of course, we got the iconic voices of the late great Kevin Conroy's Batman and Mark Hamill's Joker. And I really don't need to explain why they're amazing because, well, it's Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. But the only thing I will say is that their dynamic is just so fucking iconic as always with these characters. They're legendary.
I'm in control of the asylum. You're not going anywhere I don't want you to. Understand?
If you think I'll let you run...
Always with the hero speed. Ooh, I'm getting bored of watching you. Why don't you just come find me? Seeing as how I'm feeling generous, I'll give you this one for free. Knock me off! I dare you. End this! Pull the plug! Stop me once and for all! Oh, you're getting too predictable, Bats. Change! Get crazy. It's the only way to beat me. You know you want to. Never. You wasted the antidote on yourself? Now that's funny!
Not just that, but they also got Tom Kane to voice Jim Gordon, and he did a great job as well. Steve Bloom as Killer Croc was amazing, and he gave him that scary edge to the character. Dino Andrade, I'm sorry if I butchered the name, did an incredible job with Scarecrow by portraying him as psychotic and mentally insane. And like I said, even though I didn't like the costume designs for Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, I do like everything else about the characters, and that especially goes into the voice acting as well, with Arlene Sorkin playing a classic Harley Quinn and Tasia Valenza playing Poison Ivy. Sorry if I butchered any names. But the voice acting overall is phenomenal. Like I said before, the characters themselves are also great too. Batman is... well, he's Batman. He's a detective and a badass while also having his tragic past that is shown in the Scarecrow sections. Joker is a psychotic maniac who just wanna watch the world burn and is having fun toying with Batman and taking over Arkham. His character is literally just being a mentally insane clown. Harley is pretty much just a part of Joker's henchmen, except she's kind of like a higher rank. Yeah, she's a lover to the Joker, but everyone, including even Joker himself, treats her as a joke and just a part of his crew, which is really funny. Killer Croc is a menacing and scary monster who eats people. Cannibalism. He's a terrifying character. Scarecrow is the same thing as Croc in terms of him being really scary. He's a nutcase who's heavily obsessed with the idea of fear to the point where he becomes insane about it. He uses fear to his advantage by using his fear toxin, and you go into his nightmare world, and it's awesome and yet terrifying. Bane is a macho strongman who can definitely break Batman's back. I mean, look at him. He's like, what, 15 feet tall? Jesus. This man is swole. Poison Ivy is pretty much the same as any other incarnation of her character. She hates people because of their treatment of plants, and she just adores plant life overall, yada yada yada, yeah, we know. And then there are side characters like Jim and Barbara Gordon, Aaron Cash, the Warden, and Dr. Young, who are not super incredible characters, but they do service the story and get the job done. But if you do look at the Easter eggs, patient interview tapes, character files, and the lore for this game, then their characters do become pretty interesting. Speaking of which, the patient interviews and the character files are pretty cool. You unlock them by either just meeting the character within the game or doing Riddler challenges. The character files are interesting because they can detail the aspects of these characters into simple explanations and information about them, down to who they are, what they look like, and even what their first appearance was. It's really neat stuff. And not only does it have characters from this game, but it also has characters who are extremely obscure and unknown to the populace in terms of Batman's mythos. This then leads into the patient logs, which you can collect throughout Arkham Island, and they give you really interesting details and even cool small stories about the villains of this game. My favorite is the Scarecrow one, because they made his character really interesting with his obsession with fear and how he thinks that everything in this world is driven by fear, and it's just really fascinating.
Fear drives everything, Stephen. Everything. Your life is governed by fear. Every decision you make is a product of that fear.
Don't be ridiculous.
You married your wife, Margaret, isn't it? Because you were scared of dying alone. You have children because you're scared of leaving nothing behind that really matters. You go to the doctors because you're scared of dying. Do I need to go on?
Not just that, but the story it tells is really cool, with Scarecrow getting into the doctor's head. I swear, Scarecrow is my favorite character in this game. Not just because of his gameplay sections, but also with his character too. He's just such a fascinating and interesting character. Then there's Killer Croc's patient tapes, which details who Croc is, and they also explain that Cash's arm was eaten by Croc, and that's why he has one arm. Just some cool backstory and lore. The Poison Poison Ivy one is like the Killer Croc one in terms of just giving us some really cool backstory and lore, with Ivy controlling a doctor to fall in love with her and then forcing him to do everything she says. The Joker one adds more to the story, with Dr. Young recording these tapes and thinking that she could cure the Joker. And it's really cool because this leads into the story about her and the Titan formula and everything, and it's really neat. Then lastly, we got Harley Quinn's tapes, which is basically just her origin story, with her being Joker's doctor and falling in love with him and yada yada yada. We all know that. But it's still pretty cool nonetheless. It just adds lore to this universe and also explains who she is too. The Easter eggs and secrets in this game help out the world building, history, lore, and story for this game as well. There is just so much to this game in terms of stuff like this, and it's great. These Easter eggs are really cool callbacks to Batman's rogues gallery and history from the comics, with them being about Batman's previous villains, whether they be well-known or obscure villains, other characters like Alfred and Bruce's parents, and even Gotham being in the far-out distance on the horizon. Some of these secrets, like Jack Ryder's show playing on one of the radios and giving reports on what's going on and saying rumors that they heard.
The island is effectively cut off from the mainland. Nothing on or off. Early reports that Batman himself is on the island appear to be confirmed. Eyewitness reports state that he was returning the Joker to Arkham after the incident at the mayor's office. There are unconfirmed reports that Batman was killed during the Joker's daring escape. But I must stress, this is currently unconfirmed.
And some of the henchmen just talking and having conversations with one another helps the world feel more alive and atmospheric. Not just that, but Joker being on the speakers and giving out quote-unquote announcements and just being a Joker really gives the world a lot of atmosphere and makes it feel more alive.
Hello, I'm Warden Idiot. Just let me welcome you to your new home. Here in Idiot Asylum, we have just one rule. You'll never leave us. I just want everyone to know that I really appreciate all the hard work. You know, watching you guys is like a night in. Watching my favorite movie. What was the name of that movie again? Oh yes, Attack of the Stupid Bungling Idiots Who Can't Find an Even Bigger Idiot Running Around Dressed Like a Man. Now get to it. I'm getting bored.
At the end of the game, after you beat Ivy, there are some fireworks going off and some Sinatras playing on the speakers, which I have iterated before, makes the game more atmospheric and alive, but it also just adds more to Joker's personality too. Also, if you talk to other people on the island after this point, they'll acknowledge the fireworks and stuff, which is a pretty nice little attention to detail there.
So Joker's having himself a firework party. Do me a favor. When you find him, stick a rocket up his ass and light it. The plants just shriveled up and died. Fireworks, huh? Never liked them myself.
Normally I like fireworks, but, well, you know.
Fireworks? What's there to celebrate?
Then you have this really, really awesome secret that is extremely hidden. Nobody figured this out until one of the devs said it before Arkham City came out. But if you go to where the warden's office is and head to this wall right here and use your explosive gel on that wall, after a while you can blow up the wall and there'll be a very secret room where it will give you details on what the next game is going to be and what it's going to be about, with the room having a map showing where Arkham City will be and even showing some concept art of Arkham City. They didn't need to do this, but it's awesome that they did anyways. So like I said, the story isn't particularly amazing, but everything else from the characters, the patient interviews, character files, voice acting, Easter eggs, and secrets all make up for it. It's a really great experience from start to end because of those things. This game is one of those games where the story isn't all that amazing, but it doesn't really have to be, because everything else about it is so amazing that I don't care. The story isn't horrible, but it's not amazing either, but everything else makes up for it.
A Bat credit card? They gave him a Bat credit card? They had the balls to give one of the greatest superheroes of all time a Bat credit card?
So overall, Batman Arkham Asylum is an incredible experience. From the gameplay to the combat to the characters and more, the game is just amazing and a really great time. It's a masterpiece that everyone should at least play once. This is, without a doubt, one of, if not the best superhero game of all time. The game innovated on the gameplay front with its combat and detective mode, and it's just a fun game to play overall. It's really atmospheric and even scary at some points. And even though the story isn't amazing, everything else from the characters, the Easter eggs, and the patient logs make up for it. If for some reason you haven't played the game, I highly recommend it. It's an atmospheric masterpiece that left a huge mark on the industry. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, then subscribe to the channel, and make sure to watch my other videos. I have more content in the future, and will be uploading more videos. Anyways, that's it for me. I hope everyone enjoys the video, and I'll see you all next time.